Marcus wiped his greasy hands on his coveralls as the last customer of the day drove away from his small auto repair shop. The sun was setting behind the hills of Cedar Valley, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. He looked at his watch and smiled. 6:30 p.m. meant he could pick up his 8-year-old son Tommy from his neighbor's house right on time. Just as Marcus was about to lock up, he heard the sound of a car engine sputtering and dying somewhere nearby. He paused, listening carefully. Then came the unmistakable sound of someone crying. Marcus had been fixing cars for 15 years, ever since he was barely out of high school, and he knew the sound of automotive trouble mixed with human distress. When he heard it, walking toward the main road, Marcus spotted a silver luxury sedan pulled over on the shoulder. The car looked expensive, probably worth more than his entire shop. Steam was rising from under the hood, and he could see a young girl sitting in the driver's seat with her head in her hands. She couldn't have been more than 17 or 18 years old. Marcus approached carefully, not wanting to frighten her. He tapped gently on the window. The girl looked up with tear-streaked cheeks and red, puffy eyes. She was clearly scared and overwhelmed. Marcus made a calming gesture with his hands and pointed to his shop uniform, trying to show he was there to help. The girl rolled down her window hesitantly. "I don't know what happened," she sobbed. "The car just started making weird noises, and then it died. I'm supposed to be home by 7 and my phone is dead and I don't know anyone in this town." Marcus could hear the panic in her voice. "Hey, it's okay," he said in the gentle tone he used with Tommy when he was upset. "I'm Marcus. I own the repair shop right over there. Let me take a look at your car, and we'll figure this out." The girl introduced herself as Emma. She explained that she was driving home from visiting a friend in the next town over when her car broke down. Marcus popped the hood and immediately saw the problem. A burst radiator hose had caused the engine to overheat. It was a common issue, but not something that could be fixed on the roadside. "The good news is it's not anything major," Marcus told Emma. "The bad news is your car needs to cool down completely before I can fix it, and the parts store is closed until tomorrow morning. But don't worry, we'll get you sorted out." Emma's face crumpled again. "My mom is going to kill me. She specifically told me to be home by 7, and she's already upset with me about my grades. I can't call her because my phone died, and even if I could, she would just lecture me about being irresponsible." Marcus felt his heart go out to this scared teenager. He remembered being young and feeling like every mistake was the end of the world. "Tell you what," he said. "Why don't you come into my shop? You can use my phone to call your mom and I'll see what I can do about getting you home tonight." Emma looked uncertain. "I don't want to be a burden. You probably want to go home to your family." "It's just me and my boy Tommy," Marcus said with a warm smile. "And he'd never forgive me if I didn't help someone who needed it. He's always telling me we should be kind to people because you never know what they're going through." This seemed to comfort Emma, and she agreed to come into the shop. Marcus called his neighbor to explain he'd be a little late picking up Tommy, then offered Emma his desk phone. She dialed a number with shaking hands, but it went straight to voicemail. She tried 2 more times with the same result. "She's probably in a meeting," Emma said, though she didn't sound convinced. "She works really long hours and sometimes doesn't check her phone for hours." Marcus could see that Emma was trying to put on a brave face, but she was clearly worried. About more than just the car trouble. He made her a cup of hot chocolate from the small kitchenette in his office and sat down across from her. "You know," Marcus said thoughtfully, "when I was about your age, I made plenty of mistakes. The important thing isn't being perfect. It's learning to handle problems when they come up. And right now, you're handling this just fine." Emma managed a small smile. "My mom doesn't usually see it that way. She expects everything to go perfectly, and when it doesn't, she assumes I did something wrong." Marcus nodded understandingly. Parents worry, especially when their kids are driving. But any reasonable parent would understand that cars break down sometimes. It's not your fault. As they talked, Marcus learned that Emma was a senior in high school hoping to study art in college. She was clearly intelligent and thoughtful, just scared and overwhelmed by the situation. Marcus found himself thinking about what he would want someone to do if Tommy was ever stranded somewhere as a teenager. Here's what we're going to do, Marcus said decisively. I'm going to drive you home myself. It's getting late, and your mom is probably worried sick. Tomorrow morning I'll come back and fix your car properly. Then I'll drive it to your house when it's ready. Emma's eyes widened. You would do that? But you don't even know me. What if I'm some kind of criminal or something? Marcus laughed. Trust me, I've got a pretty good sense about people. Besides, Tommy would be disappointed in his old man if I left someone stranded on the side of the road. Emma's relief was visible. Thank you so much. I promise I'll pay you for everything. The repair and the gas for driving me home. I have money saved from my part-time job. We'll worry about that later, Marcus said, grabbing his keys. Right. Now let's just get you home safely. As they drove toward Emma's address, Marcus couldn't help but notice they were heading into the wealthiest part of the county. The houses got bigger and the lawns more manicured with each mile. Emma directed him through a gated community and up a long, winding driveway to a mansion that looked like something from a movie. Marcus whistled low under his breath. This was definitely not the kind of place he usually visited. But a stranded teenager was a stranded teenager, regardless of where she lived. He walked Emma to the front door, making sure she got inside safely before heading home to his own modest house, where Tommy was waiting with homework questions and stories about his day at school. The next morning, Marcus was up early as usual, making breakfast for Tommy and packing his lunch for school. He had barely slept, thinking about the scared girl from the night before. Something about Emma's situation had struck a chord with him. Maybe it was the way she seemed so worried about disappointing her mother, or how she tried to act brave even though she was clearly frightened. After dropping Tommy off at school, Marcus stopped by the auto parts store to pick up a new radiator, hose and coolant for Emma's car. The repair would be simple enough, maybe an hour's work once he got back to the vehicle. He loaded his mobile toolkit into his pickup truck and headed back to where they'd left the sedan. The silver car looked even more expensive in the bright morning sunlight. Marcus recognized the luxury brand now. This vehicle probably cost more than he made in 2 years. But expensive or not, a broken radiator hose was still just a broken radiator hose. Marcus worked efficiently, draining the old coolant, replacing the damaged hose, and refilling the system. The engine started smoothly on the first try. He let it run for several minutes to make sure the temperature stayed stable, then began the drive to Emma's house. The mansion looked even more impressive during the day. Marcus pulled up the circular driveway, noting the perfectly maintained landscaping and the fountain in the center of the courtyard. 3 other luxury cars were parked near the entrance: a sports car, an SUV, and what looked like a vintage Rolls-Royce. Marcus rang the doorbell and waited. After a moment, a uniformed housekeeper answered the door. She looked surprised to see a man in work clothes holding car keys. I'm here to return Emma's car, Marcus explained. It broke down yesterday evening and I fixed it for her. The housekeeper looked confused. I'm sorry, but Miss Emma left for school already, and I wasn't told about any car repairs. That's okay, Marcus said, holding out the keys. Could you just make sure she gets these? And here's my business card, in case there are any problems with the repair. Before the housekeeper could respond, Marcus heard the clicking of high heels on marble floors. A woman's voice called out, Maria, who's at the door? The housekeeper stepped aside as a tall, elegant woman in a perfectly tailored business suit approached. She had Emma's eyes, but none of her daughter's warmth. Everything about her radiated authority and success, from her expensive jewelry to her confident posture. I'm sorry, the woman said, looking Marcus up and down with obvious skepticism. I don't believe we've met. I'm Victoria Ashworth. Marcus extended his hand politely. Marcus Thompson. I own Thompson's Auto Repair in town. Your daughter's car broke down yesterday evening, so I fixed it and brought it back. Victoria's expression shifted from confusion to alarm. Emma's car broke down? When? Why wasn't I informed immediately? She tried calling you several times, Marcus said carefully. But it went to voicemail. She was pretty worried about reaching you. Victoria's face hardened. I was in important meetings all evening. Emma knows better than to interrupt my work unless it's a true emergency. She paused, studying Marcus more closely. How exactly did you become involved in this situation? Marcus explained how he'd found Emma crying beside her broken-down car, how he'd brought her into his shop to call home, and how he'd driven her back to the house when they couldn't reach Victoria. You brought my daughter here? A complete stranger? Victoria's voice was sharp with suspicion. How do I know you didn't plan this whole thing? Cars don't just break down conveniently next to repair shops. Marcus felt his patience being tested, but he kept his voice calm. Ma'am, I understand your concern. Any parent would be worried, but I have a son of my own and I'd hope someone would help him if he was ever in trouble. Victoria crossed her arms. What's your fee for this repair and service? The parts and labor come to $87, Marcus said. As for driving her home, there's no charge for that. I was just helping out. Victoria reached for her purse and pulled out a checkbook. I'm sure your usual rate is much higher for emergency calls and house visits. She started writing a check. Will $500 cover everything? Marcus stared at the check she was holding out. $500 would help with Tommy's school expenses or the mortgage payment that was coming due. But something about the way Victoria was handling this didn't sit right with him. Ma'am, $87 is the fair price, Marcus said firmly. I don't charge extra for helping people. Victoria looked surprised. Everyone has a price, Mr. Thompson. What do you really want? The question stung more than Marcus expected. He thought about all the times people had assumed the worst about him because he was a mechanic, because he lived in a small house and drove an old truck. But he'd never had someone be quite so direct about assuming he was trying to take advantage of the situation. What I want, Marcus said evenly, is for you to know that your daughter handled a scary situation very well yesterday. She was polite, responsible, and genuinely worried about disappointing you. You should be proud of her. Victoria's expression softened slightly, but her guard stayed up. I appreciate your assistance, but in the future, if Emma has any problems, she should contact me directly. Of course, Marcus nodded. I just hope she knows she can reach you when she needs to. Something in Marcus's tone made Victoria pause. What exactly is that supposed to mean? Nothing disrespectful, Marcus said quickly. It's just that she seemed really scared about calling you. Sometimes kids need to know their parents will be understanding when things go wrong. Victoria's jaw tightened. Mr. Thompson, I don't need parenting advice from a stranger, especially not from someone who makes assumptions about my relationship with my daughter based on a single incident. Marcus realized he'd overstepped. You're absolutely right. I apologize. I just care about kids, and Emma seemed like a really good one. Victoria studied him for a long moment. Despite her irritation, something about this mechanic intrigued her. He had turned down easy money and seemed genuinely concerned about Emma's well-being. Most people who encountered Victoria wanted something from her: money, connections, opportunities. But Marcus Thompson seemed different. The $87, Victoria said finally, tearing up the larger check and writing a new one. And perhaps a small additional amount for your time and trouble. Marcus accepted the check for exactly $87. Thank you, ma'am. I hope Emma has better luck with her car from now on. As Marcus walked back to his truck, Victoria found herself watching him through the window. There was something about the way he talked about her daughter that made her uncomfortable. Not because it was inappropriate, but because it reminded her of how long it had been since she'd really listened to Emma herself. Victoria stood by her office window later that morning, unable to concentrate on the quarterly report spread across her mahogany desk. Her conversation with Marcus Thompson kept replaying in her mind. His comment about Emma being scared to call. Her mother had hit closer to home than she cared to admit. She pressed the intercom button for her assistant. Jennifer, please cancel my lunch meeting with the Peterson group. I need to take care of something personal. Victoria rarely left the office during business hours for personal matters. Building Ashworth Industries from a small investment firm into a billion-dollar empire had required sacrifices, and personal time was usually the first thing to go. But something about this morning's encounter had shaken her more than she wanted to acknowledge. She drove to Emma's private school, a prestigious academy where the children of wealthy families received world-class educations. Victoria had attended the same school 30 years earlier, following in her own mother's footsteps. Success and excellence were family traditions. The headmaster, Dr. Williams, seemed surprised to see Victoria during school hours. "Mrs. Ashworth, is everything all right? Emma isn't in any trouble, is she?" "I'd like to speak with her privately if that's possible," Victoria said. "There's a family matter we need to discuss." Emma looked confused when she was called out of her advanced placement history class. She found her mother waiting in the school's elegant visitors' lounge, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "Mom, what's wrong? Did something happen with the business?" Victoria gestured for Emma to sit down. "I wanted to talk to you about what happened yesterday with your car." Emma's face immediately showed anxiety. "I'm really sorry, Mom. I know I should have been more careful and I should have called you sooner, but my phone died and—" "Emma, stop." Victoria held up her hand. "You're not in trouble. I met the mechanic who helped you this morning when he returned your car." "Mr. Thompson brought my car back. Is it fixed?" "Yes, it's repaired and parked in the garage." Victoria studied her daughter's face carefully. "Emma, why didn't you keep trying to call me yesterday evening?" Emma fidgeted with her hands. "I did try, 3 times, but it went straight to voicemail, and I know how important your meetings are. You always tell me not to interrupt unless someone is dying." The words stung because they were true. Victoria had established clear boundaries about when Emma could contact her during business hours. She'd thought she was teaching her daughter to be independent and respectful of professional commitments. But this was an emergency, Victoria said. "Being stranded with a broken car certainly qualifies." Emma shook her head. "I wasn't sure if you'd see it that way. Remember when I called you from school because I was sick and you said I should have just gone to the nurse and waited until you were free?" Victoria felt a cold realization wash over her. She did remember that incident. Emma had been running a fever, but Victoria had been in crucial negotiations for a major acquisition. She'd told Emma to wait it out rather than leaving an important meeting. "That was different," Victoria said weakly. "You were safe at school with medical staff available." "I know you work really hard, Mom," Emma said quietly. "And I know your business is important. I didn't want to be another problem for you to solve." The phrase "another problem" hit Victoria like a physical blow. When had she made her daughter feel like reaching out for help was creating a problem? "Emma, you are never a problem," Victoria said, her voice softer than usual. "You're the most important thing in my life." Emma looked skeptical. More important than Ashworth Industries? The question hung in the air between them. Victoria realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd given Emma her full attention, without checking her phone or thinking about work. Even their conversations usually happened during car rides between Emma's various activities. "Tell me about this mechanic," Victoria said, changing the subject. "Mr. Thompson." Emma's face lit up. "He was really nice, Mom. He didn't make me feel stupid for not knowing about cars, and he let me use his phone. He even drove me all the way home because he was worried about me being stranded. He told me about his son, Tommy, and how he teaches him to help people when they're in trouble." Victoria noticed how animated Emma became talking about the few hours she'd spent with Marcus. "He sounds like a kind person." "He is." "And Mom?" Emma hesitated. "He said something that made me feel better." "What was that?" "He said that handling problems when they come up is more important than being perfect all the time. He said even good people make mistakes, but what matters is how they deal with them." Victoria felt another pang of recognition. Her own mother had raised her with the expectation of perfection, and apparently she'd passed that same pressure on to Emma without realizing it. "Emma, I owe you an apology," Victoria said carefully. "I may have made you feel like you couldn't come to me when you needed help. That was never my intention." Emma looked surprised. Her mother rarely apologized for anything. "I know you're busy," Emma said. "I understand that your work is important." "You're more important," Victoria said firmly, "and I need to do a better job of showing you that." They talked for another 20 minutes, longer than they'd talked without interruption in months. Victoria learned about Emma's concerns about college applications, her interest in art classes that Victoria had dismissed as impractical, and her feelings about always having to be the perfect daughter of a successful businesswoman. As they prepared to leave, Emma asked, "Did you pay Mr. Thompson extra for helping me?" "I tried to, but he refused," Victoria admitted. "He only took payment for the actual repair." Emma smiled. "That sounds like him. He seemed like the kind of person who helps people just because it's the right thing to do." Driving back to the office, Victoria found herself thinking about Marcus, Thompson's simple philosophy about helping others. Her world was full of people who wanted something from her, investors seeking funding, employees angling for promotions, social acquaintances hoping for introductions. She'd forgotten what it felt like to encounter someone who helped without expecting anything in return. That evening, instead of staying late at the office as usual, Victoria came home for dinner with Emma. They ordered pizza and talked about Emma's art projects, her friends, and her hopes for college. Victoria put her phone in another room and gave her daughter her complete attention. "This is nice," Emma said as they cleaned up together. "We should do this more often." Victoria nodded, realizing how many similar moments she'd missed over the years while building her empire. Success meant nothing if she lost her relationship with her daughter in the process. Later that night, Victoria found herself researching Thompson's auto repair online. The shop had excellent reviews from customers, who praised Marcus's honesty and fair pricing. Several reviews specifically mentioned how he'd gone out of his way to help customers in difficult situations. One review caught her attention. "My elderly father broke down on the highway during a rainstorm. Marcus not only fixed his car, but drove him home and wouldn't accept any payment for his time. There aren't many people like this left in the world." Victoria closed her laptop and stared out at the city lights. She'd spent her entire adult life surrounded by people who measured success in dollars and deals. But Marcus Thompson seemed to measure success by something entirely different. And after seeing how his kindness had affected Emma, Victoria wondered if she'd been using the wrong measuring stick all along. 3 weeks after the car incident, Marcus was working under the hood of an old pickup truck when Tommy burst through the shop door with his usual after-school energy. "Dad, guess what happened at school today?" Tommy dropped his backpack and bounced excitedly beside the truck. "Let me guess," Marcus said, sliding out from under the hood and wiping his hands. "You learned something amazing, made a new friend, or Mrs. Patterson gave you extra cookies at lunch?" "Better." Tommy grinned. "A lady came to our school to talk about art programs and she said she wanted to meet you." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Meet me? Why would someone want to meet me about art programs?" "Because I told her about how you helped that girl with her car and how you always say we should help people. She said you sounded like someone she'd like to know." Before Marcus could ask more questions, the shop's bell chimed as a customer entered. Marcus looked up to see Emma walking through the door, looking much more confident than she had during their first meeting. "Hi, Mr. Thompson," Emma said with a genuine smile. "I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I wanted to thank you again for helping me that night." "Emma, it's good to see you," Marcus said warmly. "How's the car running?" "Perfectly. No problems. At all." Emma looked around the shop with interest. "This must be Tommy. I've heard so much about you." Tommy beamed at the attention. "Dad told me about your car breaking down. Are you feeling better now?" "Much better, thanks to your dad," Emma said. "He was really kind to me when I was scared." Marcus noticed that Emma seemed different, more relaxed and happy than she'd been that stressful evening. "How are things at home?" he asked gently. "Actually, that's part of why I'm here," Emma said. "My mom and I have been talking more since that night. She's been coming home earlier and we've been having dinner together most nights. She even asked me to show her some of my art projects." Tommy perked up. "You make art? What kind?" Emma's eyes lit up as she described her paintings and sketches. Marcus watched his son listen with rapt attention, asking thoughtful questions about colors and techniques. It reminded him of how Emma had talked about Marcus's kindness, with genuine enthusiasm and respect. "The reason I wanted to see you," Emma continued, is that my mom is starting a new program through her company. They want to provide art supplies and classes for kids in the community, especially kids whose families can't afford expensive programs. Marcus nodded approvingly. That sounds like a wonderful idea. She asked me to help plan it because she knows I love art. But I told her the person she really needed to talk to was you. Me? Marcus looked confused. I don't know anything about art programs. Emma shook her head. It's not about art knowledge. Mom said she's learned that the most important part of helping people is understanding what they actually need, not just what you think they need. She said you seem to understand that. Tommy tugged on his father's sleeve. Dad, is that the lady who came to my school today? What lady? Marcus asked. Emma smiled. My mom visited Tommy's school this morning to talk to teachers about the art program. She wanted to understand how it might work with different age groups. Marcus felt a strange flutter of nervousness. Your mother was at Tommy's school? She was really impressed with Tommy, Emma said. The teacher told her about how he always helps other kids with their projects and shares his supplies. Mom said it reminded her of someone else she'd met recently. Just then, the shop bell chimed again. Victoria Ashworth walked in, looking slightly less formal than she had during their first meeting. She wore a simple blouse and slacks instead of her usual power suit, and her expression seemed warmer. Mr. Thompson? Victoria said, extending her hand. I hope you don't mind the surprise visit. Emma insisted that I come speak with you in person. Marcus shook her hand, noticing that her grip was firm but not aggressive like it had been before. Please call me Marcus, and this is my son, Tommy. Victoria knelt down to Tommy's eye level. Tommy, I met your teacher today. She told me wonderful things about you. She said you're one of the most helpful students in your class. Tommy grinned, shyly. Dad says we should always help people when we can. Your dad is very wise, Victoria said, glancing up at Marcus. I was hoping to talk to you about a project I'm developing. Marcus listened as Victoria explained her vision for the community art program. She wanted to provide free classes, supplies, and mentorship for children whose families couldn't afford traditional art education. But more importantly, she wanted to create a program that truly served the community's needs, rather than just looking good in press releases. Emma suggested that you might help me understand what families in this area actually need, Victoria said. She said you have a better sense of the community than most people. Marcus was touched that Emma had such confidence in him, but he felt uncertain about getting involved with someone as wealthy and powerful as Victoria Ashworth. I'm not sure I'd be much help. I'm just a mechanic. You're not just anything, Victoria said firmly. You helped my daughter when she needed it, and you did it because it was the right thing to do. That kind of judgment is exactly what this program needs. Tommy looked between the adults with interest. Are you going to help kids make art? That sounds really cool. Victoria smiled at Tommy's enthusiasm. That's the plan. Would you be interested in taking art classes if we offered them? Can I, Dad? Tommy asked excitedly. I love drawing, but we don't have very many supplies at home. Marcus felt a familiar pang about all the things he wished he could provide for Tommy. Art supplies were expensive, and the budget was always tight. We'll see, buddy. Victoria noticed the slight tension in Marcus's voice. The classes would be completely free, including all supplies and materials. That's the whole point, Emma jumped in enthusiastically. Tommy could be one of our first students, and maybe you could help us figure out what other kids in town might want to learn. Marcus looked at his son's hopeful face and realized that his pride was less important than Tommy's opportunities. I suppose I could introduce you to some other parents, help you understand what families around here are looking for. Victoria's smile was genuine. That would be incredibly helpful. Would you be willing to meet for coffee sometime this week to discuss it? Marcus almost said yes immediately, then caught himself. I should mention that I don't really do coffee shop meetings. Between work and Tommy's schedule, I don't have much free time. Then perhaps you'd allow me to bring coffee here, Victoria suggested. I could come by after Tommy gets home from school so he can join our conversation. His input would be valuable too. Marcus was surprised by her flexibility. Most business people he'd encountered expected meetings to happen on their terms. That would work better for us. As they arranged the details, Marcus noticed how different Victoria seemed from their first meeting. She was still clearly a successful, confident woman, but the cold suspicion was gone. She listened carefully to what he said and seemed genuinely interested in his perspective. After Victoria and Emma left, Tommy could barely contain his excitement. "Dad, do you think I'll be good at art classes?" "I think you'll be great at whatever you put your mind to," Marcus said, ruffling Tommy's hair. "But remember, the most important thing is that you enjoy it and learn something new." Tommy nodded seriously. "And maybe I can help other kids too, like you helped Emma." Marcus smiled, realizing that his son had inherited the best possible trait, a desire to help others. Whatever came of this art program, he was proud that Tommy understood the value of kindness. That evening, as they ate dinner together, Tommy chattered excitedly about the possibility of art classes. Marcus found himself looking forward to his coffee meeting with Victoria, curious to learn more about her project and her motivations. He had a feeling there was more to Victoria Ashworth than her business success, and he was intrigued by the glimpses of the person behind the powerful exterior. Victoria arrived at Thompson's Auto Repair on Thursday afternoon, carrying a tray of coffee and a box of pastries from the town's best bakery. She'd traded her usual designer heels for comfortable flats and wore jeans with a simple sweater. The Etios transformation was deliberate. She wanted Marcus and Tommy to see her as a person, not just a businesswoman. Tommy was already at the shop, working on homework at his father's desk while Marcus finished up with a customer. Victoria watched through the window as Marcus explained something to an elderly man about his car's brakes, his patience evident as he answered the same question twice. "Mrs. Ashworth," Tommy called out when he spotted her. "Did you really bring coffee for Dad? He loves coffee but usually just makes the cheap stuff from the machine." Victoria laughed. "I brought the good stuff, plus some cookies I thought you might like." Marcus emerged from under the hood of the car he'd been working on, wiping his hands on a towel. "You didn't have to bring anything fancy. I would have been happy with regular coffee." "I wanted to," Victoria said simply. "Besides, good coffee makes everything better." They settled into the small break area Marcus had set up in the back of the shop. Tommy immediately dove into the cookies while the adults sipped their coffee. Victoria pulled out a notebook, but Marcus noticed she didn't open it right away. "Before we talk about the art program," Victoria said, "I wanted to ask you something. Emma told me you refused extra payment for helping her that night. She said you told her that helping people shouldn't come with a price tag. Do you really believe that?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "I think there's a difference between earning a living and taking advantage of people." Emma was scared and stranded. Helping her wasn't about money, it was about doing what was right. "But you have bills to pay, a son to raise," Victoria pressed. "Surely there are times when you have to think about money first." "Of course money matters," Marcus said, "but I sleep better at night knowing I've been honest with people. Tommy's watching everything I do, learning how to treat others. I want him to see that being successful doesn't mean losing your integrity." Tommy looked up from his cookies. "Dad always says that how we treat people when nobody's watching shows who we really are." Victoria felt that familiar pang of recognition. "That's very wise advice." "What about you?" Marcus asked. "Running a billion-dollar company must involve a lot of difficult decisions about money." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "It does. And, I'll admit, there have been times when I prioritized profit over people. I told myself it was necessary, that business was different from personal relationships. But watching how Emma responded to your kindness made me realize I might have been wrong." She opened her notebook and showed them her preliminary plans for the art program. "I don't want this to be another corporate charity that looks good on paper but doesn't actually help anyone. I want it to make a real difference in kids' lives." Marcus studied the plans with interest. Victoria had clearly put a lot of thought into the logistics, locations, supplies, teacher training, transportation for kids who needed it. But he noticed something important missing: This is all really well planned, Marcus said. But have you talked to any kids about what they actually want to learn? Victoria looked surprised. I assumed art classes would be universally appealing to children. Tommy piped up. I like drawing cars and airplanes, but my friend Sarah likes painting flowers. And Jake in my class wants to learn how to make sculptures like the ones we saw at the museum. See? Marcus smiled. Kids have different interests just like adults. Maybe instead of deciding what they should learn, you could ask them what they want to explore. Victoria made notes quickly. You're absolutely right. I was approaching this like a business problem instead of thinking about individual children. She looked at Tommy. Would you help me figure out what kids your age might want to learn? Tommy's eyes lit up. Really? I could ask everyone at school. That would be perfect, Victoria said. We could create surveys, maybe even have focus groups where kids can tell us directly what interests them. As they talked, Marcus found himself impressed by how quickly Victoria adapted her thinking. She didn't defend her original plan or dismiss their suggestions. Instead, she embraced the feedback and started building on it. There's something else, Marcus said. A lot of parents around here work multiple jobs or long hours. Evening and weekend classes might work better than after-school programs. Victoria nodded. What about transportation? Would that be an issue? For some families, definitely. And childcare for siblings too young for the classes. We could provide both, Victoria said without hesitation. Transportation and supervised activities for younger children during class times. Marcus raised an eyebrow. That's going to be expensive. Money isn't the limiting factor here, Victoria said. Finding the right approach is. I'd rather spend more and create something that actually works than save money on a program that fails to help the people it's supposed to serve. They spent the next hour discussing practical details. Victoria asked thoughtful questions about the local community, and Marcus was surprised by how well she listened. She wasn't just waiting for her turn to talk. She was genuinely absorbing what he said and building on it. Can I ask you something personal? Victoria said as their conversation wound down. Marcus tensed slightly. Sure. Emma told me you're raising Tommy on your own. That must be challenging, especially running a business. Marcus glanced at Tommy, who was absorbed in drawing pictures of the art classes they'd been discussing. His mom passed away when he was 3, Marcus said quietly. It's been just the two of us ever since. Victoria's expression softened. I'm sorry. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was. But Tommy's an amazing kid. He makes it easier just by being himself. Marcus looked at his son with obvious pride. Some days I worry I'm not giving him enough. Not enough opportunities, not enough experiences, but he never complains. He's lucky to have you, Victoria said sincerely. I can see how much he adores you, and the way he talks about helping others. That comes from watching you. Marcus felt touched by her words. What about Emma's father, if you don't mind me asking? Victoria's jaw tightened slightly. Emma's father left when she was 5. He decided that being married to a driven businesswoman wasn't what he wanted. Emma and I have been on our own since then, too. That must have been hard on both of you. It was. And I threw myself into work even more afterward, thinking that building a successful company was the best way to provide for Emma and prove that I didn't need anyone else. Victoria paused. But I may have lost sight of what Emma actually needed from me. Tommy looked up from his drawing. Mrs. Ashworth, do you want to see what I drew? Victoria leaned over to look at Tommy's picture. He'd drawn stick figures of children painting at easels with 2 adults watching, one labeled Dad and one labeled Art Lady. It's beautiful, Tommy, Victoria said with genuine warmth. Is that what you think the art classes will look like? Tommy nodded enthusiastically. And maybe Dad can come watch sometimes and you can see how good everyone gets at painting. Victoria felt an unexpected emotion rising in her chest. When was the last time someone had wanted her to come watch them do something just because they valued her presence? I would love that, she said softly. As Victoria prepared to leave, she turned to Marcus. Would you be willing to serve as an official advisor for this program? I know you have a business to run and Tommy to take care of, but your perspective has been invaluable. I could pay you a consulting fee." Marcus shook his head. "I don't want payment for helping kids, but I'd be happy to give advice when you need it." Victoria smiled. "I should have expected that answer, thank you." As she walked to her car, Victoria reflected on how different this meeting had been from her usual business discussions. There had been no posturing, no hidden agendas, no attempts to gain advantage. Just honest conversation about helping children. Tommy waved from the shop window as Victoria drove away. "Dad, I like her. She listens to people just like you do." Marcus nodded, watching Victoria's car disappear down the road. "Yeah, buddy. I think she's learning that listening is just as important as talking." That evening, Victoria called Emma to tell her about the meeting. "Your Mr. Thompson had some excellent insights," Victoria said. "And Tommy is delightful. I told you they were special," Emma said. "Marcus really cares about people, and it shows." Victoria found herself thinking about Marcus and Tommy long after her call with Emma ended. There was something refreshing about spending time with people who valued relationships over transactions, who measured success by how much they could help others rather than how much they could accumulate. For the first time in years, Victoria was excited about a project that had nothing to do with profit margins or market share. She was excited about the possibility of making a real difference in children's lives, and about working with someone who shared that genuine desire to help others. 6 months later, the Cedar Valley Community Arts Center was bustling with activity on a Saturday morning. Children of all ages worked at easels, sculpting stations, and craft tables, while their parents watched from comfortable seating areas. The converted warehouse space buzzed with creative energy and laughter. Marcus stood near the entrance, watching Tommy help a younger child mix colors for a painting. His son had become one of the program's most enthusiastic participants and unofficial helper, always ready to share supplies or encourage a struggling classmate. "He's a natural teacher," Victoria said, appearing beside Marcus with 2 cups of coffee. "Just like his father." Marcus accepted the coffee gratefully. "I never expected him to love this so much. He talks about art class all week long. The feeling is mutual." "Sarah, our lead instructor, says Tommy has inspired several other kids to be more helpful and inclusive." Victoria paused, watching the children work. "This whole program turned out better than I ever imagined. The Art Center had exceeded everyone's expectations." What started as Victoria's idea to provide art classes had grown into something much more comprehensive. The program now offered music lessons, creative writing workshops, and even basic life skills classes for teenagers. Most importantly, it had become a real community gathering place. "Emma's been accepted to art school," Victoria said, pride evident in her voice. "Full scholarship to her first choice program." "That's wonderful," Marcus said sincerely. "She's incredibly talented. She wants to come back after graduation and teach here. She says this place changed her perspective on what art can do for people." Marcus nodded. He'd watched Emma blossom over the past months, not just as an artist, but as a confident young woman. The scared girl he'd found crying beside her broken car had grown into someone who spoke passionately about using art to help others express themselves. "And how are things between you two?" Marcus asked. Victoria's smile was warm. "Better than they've ever been. We have dinner together almost every night now, and we actually talk, really talk. She tells me about her dreams, her worries, her friends. I realize how much I was missing when I was always working." "You've made big changes," Marcus observed. "Stepping back from the day-to-day running of your company couldn't have been easy." "It was the best decision I've ever made," Victoria said without hesitation. "I promoted my deputy to CEO and moved into a chairman role. I'm still involved in major decisions, but I'm not consumed by every detail anymore. It's given me time for what actually matters." Marcus watched as Victoria waved at a group of children who called out greetings to her. Over the months, she'd become genuinely beloved by the families in the program. She knew the kids' names, remembered their projects, and celebrated their progress with authentic enthusiasm. "There's something I wanted to talk to you about," Victoria said, her tone becoming more serious. Marcus felt a flutter of nervousness. What's that? The program has been so successful that other communities are asking us to expand. I've been offered partnerships in 3 different cities to create similar centers. That's amazing, Marcus said. You should be proud. I want you to help me run it, Victoria said directly. All of it. I'm offering you a position as Director of Community Outreach for the entire program. Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. Victoria, I'm flattered, but I'm a mechanic. I don't know anything about running educational programs. You know about people, Victoria said firmly. You understand what communities need because you're part of one. You have insights that no MBA program can teach. What about my shop? I can't just abandon my customers. Victoria smiled. I've thought about that too. What if we kept the shop running as a community resource? We could hire additional mechanics, offer low-cost repairs for families in need, even teach basic car maintenance as part of our life skills program. You'd still be involved, but you'd also have the opportunity to help expand this program to reach thousands more children. Marcus stared at her in amazement. You've really thought this through. I've had 6 months to watch you work with these families, Victoria said. You have a gift for understanding what people need and finding ways to help them. That's exactly what this program needs as it grows. Tommy ran over to them, paint smudged on his cheek and excitement in his eyes. Dad, come see what Maria painted. It's a picture of her whole family and she included her dog. Marcus followed Tommy to admire Maria's painting, his mind racing with the implications of Victoria's offer. As he praised the young girl's artwork, he noticed how naturally he'd fallen into this role of encouraging and supporting the children. Maybe Victoria was right about his abilities. Dad, Tommy said quietly as they walked back toward Victoria. Are you going to take the job Mrs. Ashworth offered you? Marcus was surprised. You heard that? Tommy nodded seriously. I wasn't trying to listen, but I heard her say something about helping more kids. Would that mean we'd have to move? Maybe sometimes to help set up new programs, Marcus said carefully. How would you feel about that? Tommy considered the question with the gravity only children can bring to important decisions. Would I still get to come to art class here? This would always be our home base, Marcus assured him. Then I think you should do it, Tommy said decisively. You're really good at helping people, Dad, and if we could help more kids like we help the ones here, that would be really cool. Victoria had been watching their conversation from a respectful distance. When Marcus rejoined her, she could see he was seriously considering her offer. There's no pressure, she said. Take all the time you need to think about it. Marcus looked around the bustling art center, watching children discover their talents while their parents connected with neighbors and made new friends. He thought about the scared teenager he'd helped 6 months ago, and how that single act of kindness had led to all of this. Actually, Marcus said, I don't need time to think about it. Yes, I'd like to help you expand this program. Victoria's face lit up with genuine joy. Really, you're sure? I'm sure. Tommy's right. If we can help more kids the way we've helped these ones, then that's what we should do. Victoria surprised them both by reaching out to shake Marcus's hand, then pulling him into a brief, warm hug instead. Thank you. This is going to be amazing. As the day continued, Marcus found himself seeing the art center with new eyes. Instead of just a local program, he saw a model that could be replicated anywhere. He imagined children in other cities having the same opportunities as Tommy, parents finding the same sense of community that had developed here. Later that evening, as Marcus and Tommy walked to their car, Tommy slipped his hand into his father's. Dad, I'm proud of you. Why's that, buddy? Because you always help people even when it's hard or scary, and now you're going to help even more people. Marcus squeezed Tommy's hand. We're going to help people together, Tommy. This is our adventure. As they drove home past Victoria's mansion, Marcus reflected on the unexpected journey that had brought them to this point. A broken radiator hose and a crying teenager had somehow led to a new career, new friendships, and the opportunity to make a difference in countless lives. Victoria was right. Sometimes the most important thing wasn't having all the answers, but being willing to listen and learn from others. Marcus had spent his life helping people fix their cars, never imagining he might also help fix something much more important: the connections between people in their community. Tommy fell asleep in the passenger seat, his latest art project clutched in his hands. Marcus smiled, thinking about all the adventures that lay ahead for both of them. Sometimes the best opportunities came from simply doing the right thing when someone needed help, and being open to where that kindness might lead.